We'll go ahead and get started, and as people filter in, they can find their seats. Welcome to the silver anniversary of Forestry Day at the Legislature. I'm John Reiling, Intermountain Section Chair for the Society of American Foresters. SAF has hosted this event annually for the past 25 years, and of all of the events that we host each year, this is a highlight because of the phenomenal speakers that we get, but also the engagement that we have with each of you. Founded in 1900, SAF is your source for professional guidance on sustainable forest management. We have SAF members scattered across the state in all sectors of forestry. Riley Stigner and Associates help us organize this event every year. Emily McClure has run point for this event for us, and Peter Stegner will be emceeing this year's event. Welcome, everyone, and thank you, Peter.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to the 25th Forestry Day at the Legislature. What started out as a smaller breakfast that we held over at the Capitol has now turned into this beautiful lunch that we have here. So thanks so much. I'd like to start by thanking the Society of American Foresters, as well as all of our sponsors that you can see over there and also are included in the program. We have a great lineup of speakers today. The theme, not surprisingly for many of you, is how do we, in the industry and then through the great help from the Idaho Legislature, deal with the rising cost of forest fires to our forested communities, buildings, lives, and then, of course, the $4 billion industry that is the forest products industry in Idaho. Our first speaker is Heather Heward with the University of Idaho, and she'll be followed up by Stimson Lumber's Bill Pittman. In addition to some of the things that they're going to be talking about that we can do on the industry side in terms of managing our forests for catastrophic wildfire, we're also going to be talking about some of the things that we're asking of the Idaho Legislature in terms of funding positions at the University of Idaho, making sure we have a robust firefighting budget with the Idaho Department of Lands, as well as passing good legislation that allows us to really take advantage of some of the emerging technologies that we see in wood that we're getting pretty excited about. As you walked in, you may have seen that we had a video of the University of Idaho Central Credit Union basketball arena that was made entirely of mass timber, all of it sourced from Idaho. We in the industry are extremely excited about that building. It is not a tall wood building. You might recall from last session, we got a bill passed through all of your hard efforts to bring Idaho into the 21st century and approve tall wood buildings using mass timber. And so hopefully one day, in addition to the beautiful basketball arena, we'll also have some rolling slides of some new mass timber buildings here in Idaho. With that, thanks again to the sponsors, to SAF, and to all of you for coming, and I will pass it off to Heather.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Much appreciated for the time that you've taken in your day to talk about this important topic. My name is Heather Heward. I'm a senior instructor at the University of Idaho, and I'm also the chair of the Idaho Prescribed Fire Council, which just started last year. My background, I started as a firefighter at a high school, wildland firefighter, and it was great. People thought I was so cool, and I thought I was pretty cool too. And I went to school, University of Idaho, studied natural resources, got a master's studying fire, how satellites view fire, still thinking I'm pretty cool. And then I became a mom and realized I wasn't as cool as I thought I was. And then I became a teacher and realized I was even less cool than I thought I was. So I teach at the University of Idaho, and I love it. I am still an active firefighter. I am able to go out on fire incidents, and this last summer spent quite a lot of time in Idaho on some fires. And was able to see firsthand what the impact that wildfire can have on Idaho, not only through my own personal experience on these fires, but also through talking to the firefighters that are my students, that are my peers, that are my supervisors, and really getting a gauge of what's their perspective of how fire is going in Idaho. This is an image from a website, and the website allows you to put in your area code and allows you to see your fire risk for a specific area. What you can see is that Idaho's looking pretty hot, and not in a good way. So we're in the red category predominantly. You can see our little button there in the graph. We're in the upper right-hand corner. And the two axes of the graph, let's see if I can recall here. We've got likelihood on one and consequence on another. So we have a very high likelihood because of the rural nature of a lot of Idaho. Our consequence is not as high as others. But we have a pretty high, one of the highest, in fact, likelihood and consequence of catastrophic wildfire in our country as far as other states go. And you can see the distribution of where those fire risks are. Now, we do our best to have a good picture of what we understand to be fire hazard. The reality, though, is that as we learned this last year in Colorado, is that we don't know a lot about what is going to be an area that's going to have high fire hazard. And so we need to do our best to reduce wherever possible the likelihood of fire where we can, because we know that there's always going to be unexpected things that come up. So what do we do about this? We have got to take some kind of an action. No action is inaction. In this case, no action means leaving our forests without any kind of management. And what happens there is natural succession. Things grow up underneath them, the canopies close, and we have potential for a large incident where we have a large reaction. No action equals large reaction. Large reaction means huge fire suppression costs, probably more loss of infrastructure, risk to firefighters and the public. And then we have the opportunity for something different. Proaction, which leads to a smaller reaction. This is an example, these pictures come from an example on Moscow Mountain, right near Moscow. So several years ago, my students were hired. I invented this program called Firefighter for Hire. I'm very clever. Firefighter for Hire. So firefighters, we'll go out and we'll thin your area. We've purchased chainsaws. We give them training in how to use chainsaws safely, and we go and thin areas. And so we had this pretty sweet gig where we could drive 10 minutes out of town, and these forward-thinking, thankfully somewhat wealthy landowners were willing to pay my students by donation to thin their area. So we worked for several years to thin, pile, burn over and over again till we had a nice fuel reduction area. We took a stand like there on the left, and we made it closer to one that would look more natural, like it looked historically. And lo and behold, what happened this summer is a fire was ignited from a battery from a garage, and it burned up and burned through these fuel treatments. Now, when you see fire on an area that you love very much, most people would be really worried. And I'm not going to lie, I was worried, but I was also very excited because I knew it was heading right to my fuel treatments, and I could not wait to see what happened. So I hopped on the first fire engine that I saw. I was like, get over, I'm getting in. Hopped in, ran up there and, fought the fire for a while. And then I was like, I gotta go take a look at my fuel treatments. Like, hold on just a moment. Hopped up there and I looked around and was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Look at this. And thankfully, that day, the firefighters that were on the fire the night that it was burning most actively, they'd taken some pictures and they were there. And I was like, send me those pictures. I gotta see this. So these are pictures of the active fire behavior in our fuel treatment. And they were like, it was amazing. It just dropped right to the ground. And then we were able to go right approach it, and we were able to put that fire out right there because the fire was no longer in the canopies. It was right on the ground. We could manage it. And it just melted my heart. I was so excited. So proaction. What keeps us from doing proaction? Wow, shoot, it's expensive. It's hard. Got to have people to do it. But that's why we need partnership. So there is not just one solution to this problem. And unfortunately, there's usually lots of solutions, and you can't really do them all at the same time even. But I like to break it down into 2 steps. First, we've got to know what to do and how to do it. And the second thing we have to do is to do it. But there are pieces in each of those that we need support on. For knowing, we need more people that can do effective outreach. Notice the word there, effective, because I'm sure all of you know there's outreach and then there's effective outreach. So we need to do effective outreach. We need to do meaningful research that is pointed at the right kind of questions. And we need to have education for people both generally so that we have a better educated public so they can make wise decisions in their voting. And we need to have better education of our practitioners as we go on into the future. I am doing my PhD right now at the University of Idaho, partly because it's a real good deal when you're a faculty member there. You can take some classes. And I'm studying adult organizational learning and leadership. And I'm learning a ton about how we can effectively teach people. Turns out we do it poorly most of the time. I'm sure you're not surprised at that if any of you have taken workplace training. But we can do a better job at educating people on how to do their jobs so that they can make more of an impact with the money that they are given and have a better impact on our Idaho's forests. So to do more, we need the money to do that, and we need the legal support to do these things. And that's challenging because honestly, a lot of the things that we are doing in the state of Idaho to be able to reduce this risk puts risk on us as practitioners. I have people ask me all the time in our Safe Club, our firefighter for hire, can you come and burn our property? I'm like, I'm 38. I have 20 more years in my career. I would rather have it not end. And that's terrible that is my response. My response of someone that is confident as a prescribed burner and planner, and yet I am afraid to do it. How do we make it so that we have these things that are safer for people to do legally so that they can have the space to do what's best for our landscapes? And we need to give our practitioners more of a reason to gain this knowledge, something that actually requires workplace training to get better at their jobs. So there's a lot of things that we can do as partnerships. We have these wonderful institutions, SAF and others, that are really establishing quality measures for what it means to be quality practitioners. And we need to start working together all across the board from knowing to doing, back to knowing, so that we can continue this cycle and continue to progress. I believe that we can make progress through our partnerships, and that by working together, we can be proactive. Go back a slide. We can be proactive for Idaho's future. Thank you for your time. Ooh. I did bring some nice patches. They're very beautiful. And if you come and talk to me afterward, you may have one.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you to the University of Idaho for all they do in terms of providing the research and all the help with regard to these issues that we deal with. Next, I'd like to bring up Bill Pittman with Stimson Lumber.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Like Peter said, my name is Bill Pittman. I work for Stimson Lumber, and just want to personally thank each and one of every you for taking time out of your day to listen to a message that I want to let you know about that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and that is very important to the timber community. I work for Stimson Lumber Company. Just a little bit of background on Stimson. We own about 168,000 acres in the northern 5 counties of the Panhandle. We employ about 180 people. We're one of the few family-owned, fully integrated timber companies, meaning that we own our own land, plus we have 3 sawmills that we feed those sawmills with the wood coming off of our land. It's difficult to deny that over the last several summers, they become hotter and drier. I think we all hope that this pattern is temporary and short-lived, but regardless, it's something that we need to deal with. Where I live in the Panhandle, it's almost becoming the new normal, where the sun is concealed by wildfire smoke for several weeks out of the summer. I've been a forester for Stimson for 25 years, and only twice have I ever experienced a complete woods closure, the type of closure that shuts down all forest management activities, shuts down hauling of logs out of the woods, shuts down all recreational opportunities within my 25-year span. Both of those closures have come within the last 6 seasons. But despite all the negativity associated with wildfires and the disturbances they cause, there has been a shadow of good news. And that good news is that there's an increased awareness around the topic with the public. And embedded within all that negativity, there is a hidden gem. And that gem is something that foresters have known all along. And that's that forest management plays a critical role in managing for wildfires now and forever. I do not want to oversimplify what can be a very complex system, but when we break down Stimson's business plan, it's fairly simple. We harvest trees, we plant trees, we manage trees, and we repeat. And it's that simple. The key element there is management. What we're learning today as foresters is that we must have a forest management style that's able to absorb these disturbances that wildfires are causing us. Wildfire occurrences and severity is increasing in the West. It is, if this is not properly addressed, and soon, there will be fewer forest lands to provide products America needs and to provide recreation and open spaces for growing public. Over the last 6 years, Stimson alone has lost over 17,000 acres affected by wildfire. Just to put that into a little bit of context, that's 17,000 acres full of trees. Trees like ponderosa pine, western larch, western white pine, and several others managed from a certified and sustainable forest. Over time, these 17,000 acres would be harvested by professional loggers and manufactured in mills, creating value for the communities in which we operate within. This was 17,000 acres of fish and wildlife habitat that was biologically diverse and provided ample opportunities for public recreation. This was 17,000 acres where we planted close to 3 million seedlings just to replace the ones that we lost. Like I said earlier, our management style has to be able to absorb these disturbances. And we do. Nearly everything we do as an industry reduces fuel levels across the landscape. We can do everything right as a land manager, but at the end of the day, we're still at the mercy of our neighbors. It's silly to say, but wildfires know no boundaries. Instead, ownership boundaries are a way to change fire behavior or not. The Forest Service is one of our primary neighbors, and we have suffered significant losses to our private timberlands over the last 6 years from wildfires that started on Forest Service lands and burned our timberland. As a result, Stimson has been much more proactive with local and state governments to highlight this issue and stress the need to have this neighbor both improve the health of their land and to reduce the fuel loading on timberland property under their oversight. This situation is not getting better, it's getting worse, and something needs to change. There is a symbiotic relationship between wildfire, forest management, and the climate. Forest management leads to declining forest health and increases the risk of wildfire exacerbated by a changing climate. Younger, fast-growing forests absorb more carbon, and as they mature, they store more carbon. Managing for losses due to wildfire yields ancillary benefits like promoting and developing healthy forests. Population increases and demographics shifts have heightened levels of concern in the wildland-urban interface. For those that don't know, a wildland-urban interface, or WUI, refers to an area where structures and other human development meet with underdeveloped wildland. Fuels reduction wildfire mitigation needs to be a priority in the WUI to protect lives and property. Programs such as the Good Neighbor Authority and collaborative stewardship agreements are vital to reduce losses. These programs foster collaborations between folks who typically don't work together day to day. And that is important because, like I mentioned earlier, wildfires know no boundaries. One of the fuel reduction programs that Stimson is involved with includes folks from the Forest Service, state lands, the county, several small private landowners owning between 10 and 200 acres, and a public utility company that has a power line running through the project area, supplying power to over 1,000 residents. Collectively, we are investing some $460,000 towards forest management activities that will reduce fuel levels, improve forest health, and protect homes and people, all the while providing well-paid jobs to the local community. Nearly all of these activities include some level of tree thinning, both commercial and pre-commercial. And there's also a component of mechanical removal of logging slash. We're removing stagnant and diseased trees and smaller trees that would otherwise act as a ladder, allowing a fire to crawl up the tree and reach its crown, resulting in a crown fire. The picture here that I wanted to just kind of influence was what foresters call the crown, or the green part of the tree. The crown is really the engine of the tree. It's the green part that absorbs the sunlight and through the photosynthesis process turns that into energy to grow that tree. So the larger the crown a tree has, the faster and the healthier it's able to grow. And what I want you to kind of pay attention to is just the nature of the crown between the photos on the left and the photo on the right, and just the difference on the lack of crown to the left and the one that has full crown on the right. So the idea with thinning these stands is to allow those crowns to get more sunlight so that they can be healthier and withstand a little bit more disease in the future. All of this thinning will be followed where needed with some level of planting. A thin forest is a healthy forest. The project also consists of 25 miles of road work. This road work is equally as important as all the others. What we're doing is creating a shaded fuel break. This type of work revolves around reducing the amount of fuel, like small trees, dead trees, and other vegetation, near the running surface of the fire. The idea with this shaded fuel break is that if a fire does occur, it will be much less intense and be ideally more of a ground fire creeping around the ground instead of a crown fire. It's still allowing vehicle access into the fire. After all, a well-maintained road system is critical to allowing access into an area. I've seen this time and time again on almost every large fire in the past. When a fire does start, one of the first things that fire crews do is build the shaded fuel break instead of putting out the actual fire. It kind of goes without saying, but these shaded fuel breaks are much better to complete in the off season so crews can have the opportunity or just one priority, and that is to fight fire. It's great when we can partner with other folks like this collaboration project we did, because you cover a very large amount of ground. We covered probably close to 2,000 acres with the one that we're working on. But this doesn't stop us from taking a more isolated approach to protect our timberlands on a more individual basis. We must. For Stimson, every year that goes by, it seems like we do a little bit more than what we did the previous year. We focus our efforts where we feel we're vulnerable from our neighbors. Idaho's forestry contractors are very resourceful and have made significant capital investments to purchase heavy equipment that is the right tool for the job. Pieces of equipment like the ones that are shown. Their equipment is designed to pulverize woody debris or logging slash, what we call mastication, to lessen the threat of fire ignition and slow the spread of a fire if it does occur. Just this last year, we used 5 different Idaho contractors for fuel reduction work using these types of machines. Collectively, they have well over $2 million worth of highly specialized machinery. The equipment comes in all different shapes and sizes, making it easy to select the right piece of equipment for the right job. For instance, we can choose a smaller machine to masticate fuels around a house along a property line, essentially making a fuel break. Or we can choose a much larger machine to masticate a recently harvested area deep within our ownership, but where we're up against an agency neighbor. Or we can choose an excavator-style piece of equipment where we can work steeper grounds. The opportunities are plentiful. They all have one thing in common. It's one of those great payoffs that this type of work has, and it's one of those ancillary benefits that I mentioned earlier. The fuels that we're grinding up to lessen the threat of fire are actually being left on site and incorporated back into the soil profile to act as nutrients for the next crop of seedlings that we intend to plant, rather than going up in smoke. We want to store carbon, something that well-managed forests are very good at, not release it. In closing, I would say that we see active forest management playing a vital role in how wildfires behave as they cycle through the landscape. It's better to be proactive than reactive. Working with Idaho Department of Lands has been a great neighbor and resource for us. Their quick response to the fires in the Panhandle of 2021 were outstanding. Air support was fast and heavy and seldom allowed a fire to get out of control. We appreciate their rapid and decisive response from IDL and do realize that it comes with a large and growing price tag. There needs to be the same level of aggressiveness on federal lands, especially when they are adjacent to state and private lands. We could use your help. As fellow Idahoans, we need to demand that the federal agencies do a better job of managing their vast forest lands. Having wildfires escape from overly dense, diseased federal stands to burn up precious, well-managed state and private lands is unacceptable. Managing our lands appropriately is what neighbors do for neighbors in Idaho. If presented the opportunity, please demand better forest management on federal lands in Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Heather. As I think you, to kind of pull the two themes of those presentations together, I think the map that Heather showed with all the red and all of the threat that we have with regard to fire on the landscape and the chances of catastrophic fire becoming the new normal. You move to a company like Stimson's or like any of the companies represented in this room who are dealing with this reality. They're responding to this reality and they're trying their best to manage their lands while also dealing with the threats that we see from some of our neighbors who are not or constrained through various policies from doing the same. So we really appreciate your time. We really thank you for being here and for coming here every year. And we also see the partnership that we've formed between the Idaho Legislature, the Governor's Office, the Department of Lands, all of the state agencies, and industry as critical to addressing some of these problems. So you'll be hearing from us. There's a one pager from SAF describing some of the issues that we're dealing with and some of the asks that we're coming to the legislature with. And we just want to really thank you. We know you hear these presentations often. Very rarely do I run into any lawmaker who is not painfully aware of the situation that we have here in Idaho with regard to fires and our forests. So I hope this information was useful. And always please do find Emily, me, any of the companies in this room to talk about some of these issues, especially as they come up during this session and in future sessions. So with that, I'd just like to say thanks again for everyone coming, and hope you enjoy the lunch and hope you have a wonderful and productive session.